All right, welcome back, everyone. We love to look back at the golden age of Hollywood, right? The glamour, the romance, the larger-than-life stars that seem to just glow. Well, today we're diving into the glitzy world of classic Hollywood, but with a twist. We're going backstage, behind the velvet ropes, and into the dressing rooms to find out what these icons were really like. Because let's be honest, not every star shined as brightly off camera as they did on screen. In fact, some of them were, shall we say, a bit of a handful. Like that one relative you only see at Thanksgiving. We put these folks on a pedestal, we see them in these timeless movies, and we think they must have been just as perfect in real life. But people are people, and some people are just difficult. It's fascinating, really, to peel back the layers of these polished public images. You think you know someone from their movies, but the stories from the people who actually had to work with them, those are the real blockbusters, let me tell you. It's like finding out Captain America leaves his socks on the floor. So get comfortable, grab your popcorn, maybe some for throwing, depending on how you feel about this. Because we're about to pull back the curtain. We've done the digging, we've read the memoirs, we've sifted through the gossip columns of yesteryear. And let me tell you, the tea is piping hot. Here are 4 legendary stars whose off-screen behavior might surprise you. First up, we have the one, the only, Joan Crawford. Those eyes, that dramatic flair. She could command a scene like nobody else. She was the queen of MGM for a reason. Her performances in films like Mildred Pierce were just legendary. You watch her on screen and you see a powerful woman, a determined woman, a sometimes vulnerable woman. She had a career that spanned decades, constantly reinventing herself to stay on top. But behind the scenes? Oh boy. It was a different movie entirely, not family-friendly. Joan had a reputation for being particular, demanding to a point that would make a drill sergeant blush. She was a perfectionist. Her methods were intense. Crew members spoke about meticulous, almost obsessive demands. Everything had to be just so. The lighting, the temperature of her dressing room, diva behavior as an art form. She insisted on a specific shade of white and frigid dressing rooms. Don't even think about using wire hangers. Ever. It sounds like a joke, but it was a serious rule. The stories from sets are wild. She scrutinized every detail and yelled if it wasn't right. It was her way or the highway, and the highway was backed up. Co-stars found themselves in her crosshairs. She was fiercely competitive and hated being upstaged. She'd sabotage subtly, or not so subtly, wearing ridiculously high heels to tower over co-stars, timing her lines to throw them off, a constant battle for dominance between takes. Then there's the book, Mommy Dearest. Christina Crawford's memoir painted a horrifying picture. The book became a cultural phenomenon, changing Joan's public image. The no wire hangers tirade became a camp classic in the movie. Christina described a childhood filled with fear. Other children and friends disputed Christina's account, defending Joan. The truth is probably somewhere in the middle, but her on-set reputation is undisputed. Even defenders said she was tough. And she definitely hated wire hangers. All right, let's move on to the man, the myth, the legend, Marlon Brando. I mean, what can you say? The guy was a genius, an absolute revolutionary. He changed acting forever with films like A Streetcar Named Desire on the Waterfront. He brought this raw, mumbling, magnetic realism to the screen. He was the original rebel, a force of nature. But that same rebellious spirit also made him a nightmare to work with. He was the king of on-set antics. He saw directors and producers as the enemy. For The Godfather, he stuffed his cheeks with cotton balls for the audition. He was a master of improvisation, which drove directors crazy. He rarely learned his lines. He had his lines written on cue cards and hidden all over the set, taped to other actors' foreheads, on lamps, behind props. In Superman, he had his lines written on baby Superman's diaper. On the score, De Niro found lines stuck all over his shirt. And then there was Apocalypse Now. Coppola was already dealing with a typhoon, a lead actor having a heart attack, and a spiraling budget. Brando arrived having not read the script or the book, and he was significantly overweight. Coppola shot Brando mostly in shadows to hide his size. Brando locked himself in his trailer for days. He engaged Coppola in long philosophical discussions instead of acting. He even refused to be directed by Frank Oz, calling him Miss Piggy. He once showed up to a talk show and let a Native American advocate do most of the talking. He sent Sachin Littlefeather to refuse his Oscar as a protest. He seemed to delight in being difficult, an anti-Hollywood stance. But hundreds of crew had their jobs made harder by one man's refusal to learn lines. Marlon Brando is a paradox, one of the greatest actors ever, and a maddening, brilliant pain in the neck. Okay, if Joan Crawford was the demanding queen, then Bette Davis was the defiant empress. Bette Davis was a force to be reckoned with. Fiercely talented, incredibly intelligent. Wit so sharp it could cut glass. She wasn't your typical Hollywood glamour girl. And honestly, she knew it. She fought for gritty roles, complex roles, unlikable roles. Trailblazer. A 2-time Oscar winner. She did it all on her own terms, and, her own terms usually meant a fight. Bette was famously combative. She saw herself as an artist surrounded by studio executives who were just trying to sell a product. She battled with Jack Warner over the quality of scripts she was given. She even took the studio to court in England to try and get out of her contract. She lost the case, but she won the war, earning more respect and better roles. She had a reputation for being tough, blunt, and brutally honest. If she didn't like something, a line, a costume, a co-star, she said so. There was no filter. Many people respected her for her directness and her commitment to the work. They knew that if Bette was on board, she was going to give it 110%, and she expected you to do the same. She didn't suffer fools gladly, and in Hollywood that meant she didn't suffer a lot of people. Her feuds were legendary, but none more so than her lifelong rivalry with our old friend Joan Crawford. This wasn't just a professional rivalry, it was deeply personal. It supposedly started over a man, Franchot Tone, but it blossomed into decades of mutual hatred. They traded insults in the press for years. Bette famously said of Joan, "She has slept with every male star at MGM except Lassie." Last but certainly not least, the chairman of the board, Frank Sinatra, singer, actor, icon, legend, coolness personified, that voice could make you fall in love. His swagger was off the charts. From a skinny kid from Hoboken to one of the biggest stars in the world, the American dream. On screen, from here to eternity, the Manchurian Candidate. He had incredible presence. Flip side, Old Blue Eyes had a temper, a very, very short fuse. When he lost it, you did not want to be in the room. He was fiercely loyal to his friends, his rat pack. But he demanded loyalty and remembered slights. He could hold a grudge like it was an Olympic sport. His run-ins with the press were legendary. He absolutely despised gossip columnists. He absolutely despised paparazzi. This wasn't just ignoring them. Sinatra could get physical. Stories of him or his bodyguards roughing up photographers, or reporters who wrote something he didn't like. He saw them as parasites and treated them that way. Temper wasn't only for the press. He could be rude to colleagues. He could be rude to service workers. Countless stories from Vegas casinos and restaurants, waiters, dealers, managers. He was the king. He expected everyone to know it. Cross him, out of a job, or worse. He was known for mob connections. It added to his intimidating aura. The full extent was debated, but the perception existed. Frank did little to discourage it, part of the tough guy image. The idea that one phone call could solve a problem was a powerful myth. It made people think twice before crossing him. The magic and the menace of Sinatra. He lived life his way and didn't care what you thought. So there you have it. Joan Crawford, Marlon Brando, Bette Davis, and Frank Sinatra. 4 of the biggest names to ever grace a movie poster. So while these stars lit up the silver screen, their real-life personas were a bit more complicated. It's easy to romanticize the past, to look at these black and white films and see black and white morality. But life, as we know, is lived in shades of gray. These weren't just icons, they were complex, flawed, deeply human. Their behavior doesn't necessarily diminish their talent, but it adds a fascinating, sometimes uncomfortable layer to their legacies. It really makes you think. Does being a genius give you a pass to be a jerk? Should we separate the art from the artist? There are no easy answers. These stories have been passed down through Hollywood history, becoming part of the mythology of these larger-than-life figures. They remind us that behind every perfectly lit close-up and every powerful performance, there was a real person with their own demons, their own ambitions, and a real knack for being difficult. But now we want to hear from you. What do you think about all this? Does knowing this change how you see their movies? Let us know in the comments which classic star surprised you the most, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more Hollywood stories. We've got a lot more digging to do.